The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian Podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bull artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang. Oh, done.
Oh, good to be back in your life. Monday, March 6th, 2023, episode 394 of the Anik and Florian Podcast. Post-pay-per-view shows are just about as good as it gets. I say there are 13 Super Bowls a year, the NFL Super Bowl, the 12 or 13 UFC pay-per-views, and then, of course, the cherry on top, getting to chop it up with my man Ken-Flo thereafter. How you doing, kid, with all the Orlando travel? How many weeks into the PFL Challenger Series are we anyway?
We're 6 weeks in, kid. We got another 2 weeks. But I would say this, you're referencing doing the pay-per-views as Super Bowls. You're doing essentially 2 Super Bowls back-to-back each show, so you got to double it.
I'm going to burn out. And then I'm going to, I don't know if I'm qualified to be a physical education teacher. I don't have my master's, but maybe a mailman, bus driver, or physical education teacher within the next 10 years. I can almost guarantee it.
You'll take over the world. Good.
So BattleBot stuff all over Las Vegas. I mean, if I was to believe every advertisement, there are live robot fights every night out there.
Well, actually, they're doing that now. They have this live show. It's funny because people are like, how are you doing BattleBots? We already filmed this season, so I can't take credit for that. But they're doing a live show now all the time. You can watch a lot of your favorite robots battle it out as a show in Vegas now all the time. So it's been great. It's been great. A lot of people love watching it. So it's cool to be there.
All right. So I am very excited to talk about this monster pay-per-view. It was a crazy weekend in Las Vegas, and you may have heard me reference on broadcast that there was a festive feel, and might be something I trot out there with a little promotional hyperbole for your average Vegas pay-per-view. But Kenny, there was a McGregor-like feel in the air, and Jon Jones had never been this popular in Las Vegas before. And I don't know if this will be reflected in the pay-per-view number. It was certainly reflected in the live gate, but this felt massive, and it very much felt like the king, the greatest of all time, was back even before we got to Saturday night.
I felt that I wasn't even in Vegas. I was nowhere close to Vegas, and I felt that build up. I felt it even in the prelims that something big was coming, and I think a lot of that has to do or had to do obviously with the return of Jon Jones, it being a new challenge for him coming in to claim yet another belt. And just the card was stacked top to bottom. These are the kind of cards that people get up for, man. And I assume it did big numbers, but that was my sense as well, dude. And I was nowhere close to Vegas.
All right, so it feels like I have so much to talk to you about in terms of what happened before the fight, right? It's not every week where you and I are texting back and forth, right? And Brian Stan getting involved in these text messages, right? Because whether it was UFC Embedded or the press conference, right, there's stuff to sort of lean into. And Brian Stan is texting me like, dude, Jon Jones just undressed Ciryl Gane at the press conference and outlined his weaknesses to the world 2 days before their fight. Yeah. Any thoughts on that part of the preamble to the main event at UFC 285?
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing it leading up to the fight, and I'm always very impressed with Jon Jones and his ability to break things down. This is a highly intelligent human being who just might be a fight genius, okay? The way that he could break you down psychologically, technically, he knows exactly what he needs to do out there, and he's been doing it for an extremely long time. And I think what's making things worse for people who may face Jon Jones is that he is maturing, I believe, in every way, shape, or form. I think he's getting it together in more ways than one. And you can just get that sense that there is this new Jon Jones that is out there right now.
Yeah, I do think there's definitely a wisdom that was not there before. And in terms of the fight genius, see, that's a big part of all of this because there's no denying the God-given ability, right? The natural fighting ability and fighting instincts, the God-given frame, has huge hands, which you cannot say about every single heavyweight. But in terms of the fight genius, right? And I don't say this even tongue in cheek, like working smarter, not harder, I can guarantee you that he'll work harder for the Stipe fight than he did for this one. Now, that is not to say that he wasn't being truthful with the masses, but you can look at his body and recognize that he was not in the shape of his life, right? Yes, this was the first time we saw heavyweight Jon Jones, but he professed before the fight and after that he would be leaner and meaner and a better version for Stipe, right? I think he understood what kind of shape he had to be in to beat this type of challenge. No, and maybe that part of it I do say tongue in cheek, but just an incredible performance by Jon Jones. Before we get to the actual fight, I don't know if you saw our post show, probably not. You got better things to do. But I did ask Jon Jones about the tape on the toe because he has since said at the post-fight press conference that if he is not able to get ahead of this and tape his toe in the way that he wants to, he won't compete again. Because when he was in training, Kenny, it would be very rarely that this would happen, but he'd be in excruciating pain if something would happen to this toe. The toe is structurally fine, right? But he wants the ability to tape these toes going forward. And he spoke on the post show just about how his brother said you have to have skin like an armadillo because things constantly happen in the fight game. Even when you get mouthpiece into the stairs, you're walking up the stairs and something happens. All of a sudden, they're cutting tape off of your foot. And I just think it speaks bigger picture. And then 7 seconds into the fight, he absorbs the groin shot, right? Every little thing. On the post show, he said of the groin shot, Kenny, didn't hurt too bad, but I didn't want that strike to go unnoticed, right? Always thinking, you know?
Absolutely. Again, he knows what the hell he's doing. Okay. Absolutely a tremendous amount of wisdom. I also think, if we can go back to the weight thing, I think that he specifically got a little bit bigger for that fight against Gane. I think what he's alluding to is Stipe's not as big, and Stipe might be a little bit faster, a little bit more mobile in some ways, that he's going to have to kind of meet that challenge and get down himself to kind of meet that speed a little bit more. But yeah, he's thinking of everything, John. Again, this kind of experience, there's no way you can buy. I don't care what coaches you have. None of that matters. You can't outdo that amount of experience that Jon Jones has had. Big fight experience, when it's all on the line. He's been experiencing this since he was in his early 20s.
Yeah.
How do you contend with that? And now these guys that are coming in, have to face both the skill, the experience, the intelligence, the mentorship. Jon Jones has a lot going for him right now, man.
So Stipe Miocic right now is 253 pounds, and I think you're going to get a big Stipe in there. I think he wants to be big for this particular challenge, juxtaposed against being smaller and leaner for the Daniel Cormier fight. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I do wonder where Jon Jones's weight is going to be at. I do think it'll be a little bit lower. He did say on UFC Embedded that he ate a big breakfast. He was trying to come in right at Gane's weight, but I do think it's interesting because a lot of us did expect him to look more muscular when he took his shirt off. And I'm not saying that as any sort of knock on the guy, Yeah. And again, we didn't get to see him in 5-round shape. Go ahead, Ken-Flo.
Yeah, I think people look into that way too much. If that was the case, Tyson Fury would have lost every single fight. Fedor Emelianenko didn't look like that. Cain Velasquez wasn't this jacked heavyweight. I think, he looked lean at 205 because he was fighting at 205. I think that I don't know. I think people are looking into that a little bit too much. I don't think it's that.
All right. Well, this is my informed speculation then. He said during fight week this week that he never really put in a great training camp before. Now, that's not to say there wasn't a camp for Rampage or Rashad that was really, really good and disciplined, right? But even for the Dominic Reyes training camp, he's sort of insinuating that it was hard to get him to show up. So, I do think that he has come the other way. But he said of the Stipe fight, there's never been a fight that means more to me than beating Stipe Miocic. I've never fought a GOAT. None of my past wins over past champions that I have beat were considered GOATs. I'm going to be lean, mean, fast, well-rehearsed. I've been training for Stipe for a long time already. He referenced getting his old notes. I'm just saying, I don't believe every single word of his mouth that this was like the most optimal training camp. And I do believe that there are strides to be made. And Kenny, if I'm totally being honest, and maybe I'm making too much of it, right? But I do make too much of the Instagram stuff, right? Because if he was, doing like major heavy lifting 4 or 5 times a week, I just was expecting to see a bigger package, a guy, I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's way more difficult to add muscle in ways that are going to impress people than you think. And I also think it's not a bodybuilding contest. If you got a bunch of bodybuilders who are coming off stage and you had them do various athletic feats and compared them to NFL stars, they would get outlifted, outpushed. Right. It's just I don't know. I think it's a little silly looking at that because it's not a bodybuilding contest. Gon looked pretty damn good, but that did not serve him.
It didn't help
damn bit.
Yeah. Now, Jon Jones said that if there was a CrossFit competition involving all UFC heavyweights going into this fight, that he would win that. And I would not put that past him. But I really do think it's going to be interesting to see a heavyweight Jon Jones pushed and extended potentially by someone like Stipe Miocic, because on the feet, right, Kenny? I mean, what were your thoughts on the way he looked in the short amount of fight action that we saw?
I thought he looked good. He looked fundamentally sound. He looked well balanced. That slip of the punch into the level change takedown on Gon was just a thing of beauty. Very subtle, but very beautiful and simple. Again, when you look at the guys that are elite in their fields, they do a lot of the invisible things. They do all of the things that are often overlooked. The fundamentals are always clean. There's no glaring weaknesses in Jon Jones' game. Really never has been there since he first started. And I think that he's only had more time to get better, to get cleaner with his technique, to get smarter. And, I just saw a guy that was very well balanced, was fundamentally sound, and he was always in the proper position. So he made it look easy because of it. Again, in the heavyweight division, it's almost unlike other divisions where there's huge disparities of skill. And you have Gon, who is the number 2 heavyweight in the world when they fought, right about. And you see him just get completely lost when it came to grappling, specifically grappling on the ground. Jones just was going to toy with him there. That's what I said last podcast. If it went to the ground, he was going to make it look easy. That's not me being Mystic Kenny or anything like that. It's just that he's always had that weakness. You saw it against Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou was taking him down with one good leg, and he was surprised by Ngannou's takedowns. It's like, why were you surprised by the takedowns? It's mixed martial arts. People take you down in mixed martial arts. And then I see him training with guys that are like half of his size. And I go, this guy, he doesn't know what he's in for. This is Jon freaking Jones. This isn't just some dude. This isn't some heavyweight. This isn't a guy who, won the belt a few times. This is Jon Jones, who has no weaknesses, who is as dynamic as they come, who's only going to get better. And to what you were talking about before with Stipe Miocic, I think there's a lot there. I think there's a tremendous amount of validity there. Jon Jones took this fight and I think trained harder than the fight against Reyes and Thiago Santos, because this was another chance for him to win a belt in a completely different division. And I think he'll step it up that much more for someone like a Stipe Miocic. Jon Jones is motivated by new challenges, by things that are scary. I think that's what brings out the best in him. I had tweeted about this earlier, and I think it was proven correct. He looked phenomenal. He is a great fighter who is back.
I want to stay on Ciryl Gane for a second if I could, and I think you hit on a lot of inconvenient truths when it comes to him. He's going to have a lot of questions he's going to need to answer. I know he addressed some of them at the post-fight press conference, and he's angry, he's disappointed. I didn't ingest all of that. But Kenny, the wrestling maintenance, the grappling maintenance, he's had a lot of time since the Francis Ngannou fight, and I have publicly questioned his attitude towards that stuff. And you're right. It is fair to bring questions to him about the training partners, about the work that he's doing. He seemed to be confident in the work that he is doing, but I just don't know what his appetite for that stuff really is. And, calling somebody a prize fighter is critical, right? But I don't know, man. This should have been a wrestling training camp. Like, I don't even know that he needed to do much of anything on the feet, right? And he looked grossly ill prepared.
John, I would go even further and say that the wrestling happens, the grappling happens in the off season. He should have been working on this when he didn't have a fight. And he basically, he gave away the secret. He said, oh, I've only been training when I have a fight. Oh, but for this camp, I really put it on. It's too late, dude. It takes years. It takes years to get your wrestling in order. It takes years to get your jiu-jitsu in order. Jon Jones was way ahead of you, and you took time off in between fights instead of working all the time. And I think what a lot of mixed martial arts fighters forget is that you're not preparing for some fighter when the UFC comes calling. You're preparing for the perfect fighter. And if you're preparing for the perfect fighter, you're training every single day. I mean, if you want to win, if you actually want to win, not like, let me go out and get a payday.
Right.
And I think that was, an unfortunate reality for Gon, is that he missed out on his opportunities 2-3 years ago to get his grappling in order.
Well, right.
You can't possibly catch up to a Jon Jones in a fight camp, is what I'm saying.
And you talk about regret, right? We're talking like midway through 2021. Or I guess you can say when he beats Derek Lewis and the Ngannou fight materializes, right? So he didn't do a lot of wrestling nor grappling leading up to the Ngannou fight, which was January of 2022. So if you wrestle and grapple leading up to that fight,
totally,
even though you don't expect to do it in that fight, then throughout 2022, right? I'm not saying he's at Boston University with Sean Gray, right? But you're wrestling. You're constantly wrestling, knowing that Stipe and Jon Jones are the fights that are lurking. So my next fighter meeting with Cito Gon is going to be pretty interesting. He probably wants to throw away the GOAT One More Sleep t-shirt I gave him. I just figured if he beats the GOAT, maybe he'd want to memorialize it. I gave it to his brother David, who's a really good dude. But, it's tough, right? We have to be critical. I mean, I find myself in an elevator with Jamie Pickett, just me and him after the fight. What are you going to say to a guy like that? So these conversations somewhat can be difficult, but I did want to spend a few minutes on Cito Gon because, how the mighty have fallen. I know how his bank account probably looks outstanding. Over 1 million Instagram followers. I do think that maybe bottoming out like this will serve him well. But let's get back to Jon Jones, who is your winner by guillotine choke at 2:04 of round one. I believe first submission win since he got Vitor Belfort back in the day. Could that be true, Cody? Wow. Perhaps you could trace that for me. But in terms of the greatest submission artist, Kenny, in UFC heavyweight history and in mixed martial arts heavyweight history, you got Frank Mir, you got Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, you have Fabricio Verdum. And now we got Johnny Bones Jones. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he had plenty of submission wins, obviously, early on in his career. But it's really interesting now to have somebody who knows his way around an offensive submission game in the UFC's heavyweight division.
I've been hearing about John really kind of falling in love with jiu-jitsu again, training with the guys over in Albuquerque, New Mexico, training at Gracie Baja for many, many years and keeping at it. I don't think, he's going to be a submission threat necessarily against every heavyweight out there, but I would say he would never be afraid to go to the ground against any heavyweight out there. I think there's a big difference, but it also shows how confident he is in his submission game, in his control, and what he needs to do. And he continues to impress, continues to get better. And I think he obviously has had a lot of criticism thrown his way, and some of it is warranted, right? But what I don't like hearing are, whether it's a journalist or another fighter, act like they're perfect and they're going to put him down. I think everybody has the ability to come back and get their redemption story. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And I think it's especially difficult if you have certain, alcohol or drug abuse issues that you need to overcome. It's a battle every day. It's a battle. And I think Jon Jones, I think he's on the right path. I'm cheering for him. I hope he's able to keep this up, not only for his career, but for his family, for his friends. It seems like he's saying all the right things. He's hanging around with the right people. everyone deserves a second chance, coming back from their demons. And it seems like, he's starting to put those in his rear view.
Yeah, I think that's all fair, and I'm glad that you got that out there. I'm not going to be the guy who's going to try to put him on a scale of bad to good human being and tell you where he falls, but I do think a lot of these professional athletes are misunderstood, and you can only judge certain people on the way they treat you, and he's always treated me very well, and I always used to get criticized for defending Floyd Mayweather because it seemed like the public perception ruled the day. And I think there's a lot of good in Jon Jones. I think there's definitely some bad in there, but he has been very, very nice and accommodating to a lot of people over the years. And that $50,000 bonus is going right to his care foundation in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he has definitely gone to a lot of lengths, I think, to try to sort of distance himself from a lot of the things that have checkered his past. Yeah. All right, so quick handicap on Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones, Ken-Flo. How do you see that fight playing out? And with in mind that the fact that it's probably going to headline International Fight Week in about 4 months.
Man, listen, I'm a big fan of both guys. Fight-wise, I think it will certainly entertain. Stipe Miocic really only knows how to fight aggressively, move forward. He's a guy that is going to go out there, look for a finish. I think Jon Jones is going to do the same. I think what worries me a bit is just the mileage on Stipe Miocic. He's been through so many wars. Jon Jones has seen his fair share of wars as well. He's not unscathed going into this fight either. But I think heavyweight wars are different than even light heavyweight wars. And Stipe has seen a lot of those. I think he's had a lot of miles on him. And that's one thing that, I'm a little bit worried about. We saw guys like Cormier knock him out and other guys really take him out. And I think Jon Jones has the ability to knock out Stipe. I think it would largely kind of be a fight on the feet. I think if someone looks for a takedown, it might be Jon Jones that initiates that because he would have an advantage if he puts Stipe on his back. But, man, that's a great fight. Two legends going at it, man. That's the fight. I'd imagine that would do very big numbers as well.
Cody, don't put this in the chat. Kenny, do you know how old Stipe is?
I imagine he's younger than I think. 39?
He's 40 years of age. I believe he'll be 41 in August. Hasn't fought since March of 2021. Last win, August 2020.
Wow. Yeah.
I think the spread's a little wide on DraftKings Sportsbook right now, if I'm being honest. My twin brother hates when I say if I'm being honest. It's like, what other way are you going to be? You're nothing if not honest, you stupid fuck. By the way, language this week, did we not? Oh, here's the thesis statement on that. Comments as far as that is concerned. Yeah, I parent my children and I do swear, and I do think it's up to parents to sort of navigate that on their own. I'm pro screen for children and I'm pro swearing. How's that sit with you? Minus 325 for Jon Jones on DraftKings Sportsbook. See, the kids like me again now, right? I'm pro screen. I think you guys can have screen time. It's okay. You should see my son. He's a fucking genius on that thing. He's 4. Stipe Miocic plus 270. How do Kenny and Clark feel about iPads and children? Does your daughter True have an iPad yet? I'll buy her one.
She does not. She does not. We really were kind of iPad.
You want to talk about MMA instead? Is that what you want to do?
We were kind of iPad Nazis for a little while, man.
See, Cody, see all this shit, man?
Yeah. She watches YouTube every once in a while. She could watch her Peppa Pig. She could watch some of the other shows, but Clark limits her for sure.
It's really going to be interesting to see if all of these screenless children excel more than these kids who have these devices. Because, my daughter is 11 and she's not allowed to go on social media, but she's a little content creator. So she's trying to find any website she can, Pinterest, any app she can to create content.
Gotcha.
And so to take the device out of the kids' hands, I think in some respects is setting them back. Right now, you can also argue by me not allowing my daughter on TikTok, right? It's limiting some of what she can do in terms of content creation because that particular application is very good for content creation.
Sure.
Or so I've been told, right? A lot of other trash on there I don't necessarily want her to be diving into all day,
Yes.
But I do think it's an interesting conversation. So I'm rooting for the kids who have screens. is basically what I'm saying. No, I'm just kidding.
Totally the way I see it, she'll have plenty of time to go on screens. But yeah, she's just starting that venture now. So
it's a polarizing argument. It really, really is. I know a lot of parents, even within the house, that are split on that. So, yeah. All right, back to the mixed martial arts. I don't even know exactly what we were talking about, but the line being a little bit wide, Kenny. Minus 325 for Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic plus 270. That's a big number next to Stipe. I know it's been a while, right? Would you agree with me that number seems big or no?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think a lot of that has to do with recency bias, right? You see Jon Jones just completely dismantle Cyril Gane in around 3 minutes. And, the bookies are like, well, he's going to destroy anyone in his path. Give him a big number. So, yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
All right, real quickly, because I don't necessarily want to have this conversation today, because I think you and I were aligned going in that largely based upon his strength of schedule. And if you go to Jon Jones's Wikipedia page, maybe you're a younger fan, go to Fight Pass, right? Just every single one of his title defenses essentially came against a bona fide, legendary Hall of Fame type fighter, right? Most championship wins, best strength of schedule. I think for both of us, even though George St. Pierre, your dear friend, former teammate, I think we both went into this fight thinking Jon Jones was the greatest of all time. And obviously this win for me closes the conversation. It makes me feel like I don't have to have the conversation. Anything for us on the GOAT stuff before we move along?
Gosh, I think it's certainly close. Here's the thing that I think allows George St. Pierre to stand out a little bit more above others is that there's never been any controversy around any tests when it comes to his name. That's the only thing, right? Being that clean dude who's never had anything associated with his name in that regard, for me, gives him that edge over, guys like Jon Jones, Anderson Silva, all those guys who are in their prime. So, but I mean, Jon Jones, the way he's performed and the way he has dismantled guys in title fights has been more impressive than George St. Pierre in a lot of his fights, right? So it's close. It's close, but both are but if you said either or, you wouldn't be wrong.
And based on my research, and perhaps there is some ignorance with me, I don't put Jon Jones and Anderson Silva in the same category as far as the discretions, but I could be wrong on that. So,
I think that's very.
All right. So Alexa Grasso. We did that Anik and Florian podcast poll question, and a lot of it had to do with timing, but only 4% of respondents would have sent Alexa Grasso in there as the woman to beat Valentina Shevchenko. Now, there are a number of different angles on the Shevchenko side, but all hail Alexa and Francisco Grasso. Kenny, you and I called a lot of Alexa Grasso's early fights. Her uncle Francisco has been with her every step of the way. A third championship for Mexico in as many months. Where would you like to begin on the newly minted UFC women's flyweight champion, Alexa Grasso?
Is there anything more special or more cool than having a dad and their daughter or son and having them bring wasn't her dad a trainer?
Her dad's a part of it, and he had her shadow boxing at a young age, but her chief corner has always been
her uncle, whatever it is, whether it's the Roger Mayweather type thing, where he's an uncle or but having that kind of relation, that is so cool, man. That is awesome to see. And to see them realize that goal on Saturday night in spectacular fashion was something else. Again, we were talking about it, and you said, do you see Grasso having any chance there against Valentina Shevchenko? I thought she did, and the closer we got to that fight, I don't know what it was. I had had kind of a feeling. I was like, this fight's is much closer than I had anticipated, but I did not see this coming, man. I did not see this kind of finish. I thought it would have been a close fight, a much closer fight with Shevchenko winning. But I did not see Grasso pulling off this kind of upset in this manner. I was just really impressed, man.
I'm looking up the altitude in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, compared to Mexico City. And it's not even close. It is above sea level, right? But she was in the shape of her life. You heard us say on the broadcast, the buzzword was extreme with her training, her discipline, her diet, her conditioning. Bro. beginning of the fourth round, she was like, I was more fatigued at the beginning of the fourth round at that stage of the broadcast by a significant margin than she was, man. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, maybe I have. That sounds just like a huge exaggeration. She was in the shape of her life, and I think she was buoyed by that. How about the strategy, though, right? How about using the spinning stuff and against Valentina Shevchenko and just the everything we might say about Ciryl Gane not being a willing grappler and making use of that time. Alexa Grasso did the opposite, man. I'm so happy for this athlete because, it's one thing for her to say to us in a fighter meeting that she has worked very hard on that stuff, but it's fighter meeting in and fighter meeting out every time. I'm working so hard on this stuff. Finally gets a submission against Joanne Wood and she's overjoyed. Well, now you fucking submitted Valentina Shevchenko.
She wasn't winning that fight, but what was most impressive about Grasso was her unrelenting desire to win. She didn't give up. She kept pressing forward, and that's why she was able to capitalize so quickly. That's what a champion does. And I would have been impressed with her performance, whether she won or whether she lost, because of what she was doing. And of course, she was able to do that, John, because of the phenomenal shape that she had heading into that fight. Her preparation seemed like it was awesome. But really the story of the fight here, John, is there was two major mistakes that Valentina Shevchenko made. She mistimed her back kick, so she exposed her back, which allowed Grasso to take her back, and then her actual defense against the rear naked choke. I don't know how many mixed martial arts fighters watch this show, but don't do this. Okay, don't push up on the elbow, guys. You have zero leverage there. It's not going to work. You need to grab at the end of the hand, or you need to position your shoulder in the proper way. That is not the way to defend a choke. You could see she faced forward. It went right across the jaw. And again, you do not need to get it underneath the neck to get a finish. You could break the jaw. You could drive the teeth into the lips. You can crank the neck. You can also crank the spine with the body triangle. It's never a good thing when someone's on your back, dude. Grasso was just a savage there. And again, because she was in such phenomenal shape, she got that thing and she was not going to let go. I mean, you can just see it. That was just also beautiful breakdown at the end with the camera stuff of showing that white mark across the jaw, dude. I don't think I've seen that in a very long time. I think because Shevchenko has such white skin, that was just so much more apparent. But my goodness, that was savage.
And kudos to Joe Rogan for demanding that the truck get him that visual that now has been repurposed all over the world. Joe was all over it. Joe was on fire. Pay-per-view open. He was jumping out of his skin.
That was hilarious. He was like, hey, what are you doing? You're not showing the best part. Get your shit together. Yeah, it was great.
You put this so matter-of-factly. You can drive the teeth through the lips and cause major damage that will need thousands of dollars of plastic surgery. These athletes will never be the same. The gentle art, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right, so Alexa Grasso, Kenny, eventually wants to open a rehab clinic for mixed martial arts fighters, and this certainly is something that's going to probably help her do that. But in terms of the mixed martial arts evolution, right? She faced Tatiana Suarez in 2018. Last loss came against Carla Esparza in 2019, right? And so when you think about going in there against those two athletes, there's two ways to go, right? You can hope you get striking matchups, or you can chase a world title and shore up your weaknesses. And you're right that she wasn't winning this fight, but she certainly mentally, physically, emotionally put herself in position to win it. She was competitive from the outset. She looked nothing like a plus 600 underdog. I actually think maybe she won the first round. So for Valentina Shevchenko, one thing that people have talked about in the aftermath is the championship miles, championship training camp upon championship training camp. Experience can come with a price, even if it's the most valuable thing in mixed martial arts. She's always bouncing around looking for new training. And I'm not saying that necessarily is caught up with her, but I don't know if the word's nomad or what it is, but she's almost never home seemingly. What are your thoughts on Valentina Shevchenko, who seems to not want to go away from this? She wants the immediate rematch and, wants to right this wrong.
I think there needs to be some changes, right? I don't think there's a major changes, however. I think she's still a phenomenal fighter. I think sometimes she gets caught up doing a technique because she thinks that's the time to do it. There's a lack of understanding on her part when I'm watching her strike, and she's still a phenomenal striker. But when I watch her make some decisions out there, she's throwing a technique sometimes without any rhyme or reason. There was not a reason there to throw that spinning back kick. She wasn't setting it up. She just decided to, maybe I should throw a spinning back kick. Let me just throw it. And I see it when she's throwing a lot of these spinning techniques, like with their spinning back fist and things. She just kind of whips it around because she wants to throw it, not because that's the technique to throw. Does that make sense? So yep. I think that there needs to be a little bit better understanding on her part when it comes to the striking. I think her jab is phenomenal. She knows when to throw it. It was working wonders for her. It was keeping Grasso on the outside. Yes, she was getting caught with a beautiful 1-2. That right hand from Grasso was still firing down the middle. But I think there's other techniques that could have served her a little bit better. So I think her shot selection when it came to striking was a bit off. And clearly she needs to do something about her grappling defense. That needs to be sharper. I think she's fine when she gets on top, but on her back or when people get her in some compromising positions, you could tell she hasn't spent a whole lot of time with high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners showing her what she needs to do.
All right, we'll see if they do an immediate rematch. All of a sudden, this division is wide open, and there are myriad opportunities at flyweight. I do think Valentina is richly deserving of an immediate rematch, and I would really be surprised were she not to be afforded that opportunity. Erin Blanchfield is 23 years of age, but she is very much lurking. You also have Taila Santos and Manon Fior. And Santos obviously doesn't have the winning streak that Manon Fior does. She doesn't have the winning streak that Erin Blanchfield does. She does have the competitive fight against Valentina Shevchenko, but this result obviously was not ideal for Taila Santos. So any thoughts on what they might do at flyweight? And I would also add to that there was a major investment by the UFC in Mexico, and Sean Shelby deserves a lot of credit, Lorenzo Fertitta, the brass. But now you have a Mexican champion. And you know, I do think that if you're a promoter or you're a matchmaker, right? I mean, maybe you approach this and you try to selectively figure out, you know, is Blanchfield the toughest fight for Grasso? Is the rematch the toughest fight? I don't know. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, Manon Fior and Alexa Grasso fighting for the title in 3 months if Valentina's not ready. I don't know. Right. But I don't know that it's going to be Grasso and Blanchfield, but I think that a lot of the fan base, if Valentina's not ready, is going to want to see that fight.
Well, this is what you kind of call for all the time, which is I'm on board with what you say here for fighters, right? It's like you have this opportunity to get a rematch or to get this championship fight. And if you delay it, you may never see it again. You know, it's one of these things where it's like, hey, man, there's a lot of people that want your spot. They're going to step in. So choose wisely. I'm not saying it's something you do every single time, but you have to choose wisely. You may not get that shot again. So, yeah, man, it's a tough one. I think that Valentina absolutely deserves the rematch. I think you're right on that. The timing of this, though, is going to be interesting, especially if the UFC decides they want to go to Mexico, and have a quick turnaround. On that note, I mean, imagine, first of all, a Brandon Moreno, Yair Rodriguez, Alexa Grasso fight. You could fill a stadium. You could fill a soccer stadium in Mexico with those three.
Even two of them. Two of them.
It'd be insane. But anyway, so what direction are they going to go? I don't know. I mean, I guess it all depends on the timing. If it's a quicker turnaround, you might see Erin Blanchfield in there against Grasso. You might see a Manon Fior in there. I don't know. Taila Santos, is she still in the conversation? I'm not sure either. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what the direction of the UFC is. I think that there's a lot of talent at 125 pounds, man. I'm even seeing it over in the PFL. That seems to be a kind of the 155-pound division, of the equivalent of the men's division, right?
Crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of talent there, dude.
Used to be the redheaded stepchild of mixed martial arts, that women's flyweight division. Now, all of a sudden, it's all the rage. And don't forget Tatiana Suarez. And we mentioned her head-to-head win over Alexa Grasso. Yeah. Well, the reason why I don't mention her is because she has sort of said kind of unequivocally that she wants to go make a strawweight championship run. But now, all of a sudden, right? I mean, You could do Suarez Grasso too for the title. People wouldn't bat an eye. There are a lot of different directions in which they could go. I do believe, though, it will be Shevchenko Grasso too in August or September, perhaps even with a Mexico City backdrop. Wouldn't that be something? All right, what do you have for us on the feature bout between Shavkat Rakhmanov and Jeff Neal, the fight of the night? Rear naked choke win for Shavkat there late in the fight, Ken-Flo.
Shavkat Rakhmanov is as tough as they come, man. What we found out about that is that he has unbelievable durability, unbelievable chin and toughness. I don't think we had the opportunity to see that because he has been so dominant in his fights. However, if I have stock in Shavkat Rakhmanov, I'm selling right now. I'm going to wait. Why? Because I thought he was staying in the pocket for way too long with that chin up, watching his work, and Jeff Neal was very close to knocking him out. He certainly hurt him more than a few times in that fight. And Rakhmanov seemed to get in like some kind of like toughness battle with him. He was largely ineffective with his wrestling. Not largely, he was just plain ineffective with his wrestling. Didn't complete any takedowns. Is he good? Yeah, he's still very good. But as far as like, how do I see him beating the top 3 or 5 in the welterweight division? I don't think it happens right now. There's a lot he can learn from and improve on, but based on what I saw against Jeff Neal, who also is a phenomenal fighter as well, but he was offering up opportunities for Jeff Neal to knock him out, and I didn't like it.
I really wonder what's going to happen in terms of a backup situation in London, England, right? Who's going to be the backup for Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards? Gotta have a backup, maybe not. You don't have a second title fight there, do you? Very interesting. The welterweight division. Largely, I agree with a lot of your assessment. Is there any upside for Shavkat Rakhmanov to have experienced some of this in a fight before getting to his next main event or championship setting?
I would say yes. Yes, but not like that. You know, getting hit once or twice, you know, but it's Jeff Neal, man. He could crack. And again, you don't want to take too many of those shots. These are shots that, again, could take years off your life, that could slow you down over time. And also, the more you get hit, the more your brain gets rocked, the easier it is for you to get knocked out, right? That common cliche, that common analogy of the energy bar in the corner of the video game. Except it never gets back to full power, or rarely does anyway. And I think that it has been diminished after that battle against Jeff Neal, which is a phenomenal fight. Jeff should be applauded for that performance as well. I thought he looked really good.
And he was fighting a guy who was 16-0 with as many finishes. He went toe-to-toe with him for much of the fight. And despite missing weight by 4 pounds, he was given his $50,000 fight of the night bonus, which is absolutely not the norm. I feel like in 90% of these cases, the athlete who makes weight gets all $100K. So I'm sure there will be some sort of acknowledgement of that in Rakhmanov's bank account, but nice to see Jeff Neal get the bonus despite the weight miss, because he did insinuate that there was some sort of injury and said, if y'all knew what I've been through just to get to fight night, right? This fight was delayed from January. So Jeff Neal's been through some stuff, man, with his system being septic, leading to congestive heart failure and everything else. I do think a healthy Jeff Neal, what's the ceiling, Ken-Flo, on a healthy Jeff Neal?
I think the sky's the limit. First of all, physically, he looked different. Like, he just looked way more vibrant. He looked healthier to me. And I got a chance to watch some of his training footage. This dude can crack, man. He can crack. I think he's going to learn a lot from this fight. I thought this was within reach of him winning. You know, everyone was super high, including myself, on Shavkat Rakhmanov. Jeff Neal could have won that fight. There's no question in my mind. A couple things going, another way. I thought he had a chance. I thought the kicks were really hurting him. I don't know if he was seeing the kicks as well as he would have liked. And again, big credit to Rakhmanov, but Jeff Neal has a lot more to improve on, man. This is not, in my opinion, his best. Yeah, I don't see him right now as prime. I think there's so much more we can see out of this guy. And if I was his coach, Saif Saud, I'd be very excited.
All right, big fight of lightweight, Mateusz Gamrot and Jalen Turner. It goes to Poland's Gamrot by split decision. And of course, he deserves all the credit in the world for stepping up to this particular physical challenge on like 2 weeks' notice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ken-Flo, I don't know how many 6'3" lightweights you fought in your day, but you can be sure that most of the elite lightweights ranked above, there's not a one ranked above Jalen Turner with respect to you other 8 that would have taken this fight, right? And Mateusz Gamrot took it. He said the weight cut was going to be really hard, but he wants to stay active. He wanted to distance himself from that Beneil Dariush loss, and certainly accomplished that over the weekend.
Yeah, listen, it wasn't pretty, but he got it done. And that's what it is sometimes in a fight, man. These aren't easy. Mixed martial arts is extremely difficult. Here I am, talking about some of the deficiencies of some of these elite champions here. There's so much to learn, man. There's so much you need to do out there. So I'm trying to be very matter of fact about it without bias. But for Gamrot to lose that weight, get in there and face an absolute beast like Jalen Turner, I think is commendable. And he did exactly what he needed to do. He didn't look obviously as sharp as he normally does. I'm looking at him going, where's his sharp wrestling that we typically see? His entries were really scaring me. It looked like Jalen Turner was going to wrap his shit around his neck or head at certain points. But he hung in there, man. He showed that toughness. He showed his ability to execute when he needed to. Got the control that he needed to when he needed to. But I think Jalen Turner also is going to learn a lot from this fight. And I think inexperience got Jalen Turner more than anything else. But I think he's going to be a phenomenal 155-pounder. Just needs to, add in a little bit in regards to grappling and timing and decision-making. But I thought it was a great fight because Jalen Turner was doing some great things on the feet.
Yeah. No doubt. Jalen Turner was born in 1995. He'll be absolutely fine. I do want to see him get a little bit meaner overall. Meaner in our fighter meeting. Meaner in the fight. Just a little bit meaner. I say that with all love for Jalen Turner, one of my favorite guys on the roster. I love Gamrot too, and I just give him so much respect for wanting to be that guy at lightweight that's ranked, that's going to be there for the promotion, to step up in all of these situations. There was a huge priority to preserve that fight when Dan Hooker was ruled out, and to preserve it with a ranked opponent on a big pay-per-view. Fans were really excited for that fight. I did think Gamrot won the fight, for the record. Did you think Mateusz Gamrot did enough to win the fight?
I did as well. Okay, I thought it was a narrow decision, but I thought he won. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So Bo Nickel, Brian Petrie is going to join us shortly, and I'm going to trot this out there again. Okay. So in our main event challenge, you guys can put 5 units on a guy if you so choose. I know that Bo Nickel was one of the biggest favorites in UFC history, right? But when we did our show, he was like minus 1,400. He closes minus 2,000. With respect to Jamie Pickett, I mean, there was no way Bo Nickel was winning that fight. I think it was a missed opportunity by you, but we're going to have to table that for now because now joining us, I know, and you like how I just trot that out there and don't give you a chance to respond.
Oh, man, you guys look great. John, another outstanding night at the desk for you. Congratulations.
You just said that in a probing way. Are you asking if it was an outstanding night, or are you complimenting me?
No, I'm complimenting
thank you.
for sure.
Can I compliment your haircut?
How's it look?
Honestly, does your barber listen to the show?
I think so, yeah.
Well, then it looks great.
Oh, shit. Wow. Okay, we're coming out with our swords out, huh? Touche.
Kenny, wow. Kenny, how do you think his hair looks?
Well, he just needs to.
I don't even know.
He needs to comb it a little bit more on the side. It's sticking out on one side. You got to slick it back up. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
also,
other part.
I want to see all of it. We're missing the top of your head here. You got to fix your screen so we can see all of the longoness. There we go.
I know you guys have a makeup artist before you do the podcast. Unfortunately, I'm just a schlub that sits here and wakes up and just does this with my hair, and I'm out.
They're not doing a good job on my greasy head and nose. I'll tell you that.
Holy
you look
shit.
a lot
different
than you did last week. I mean, I don't know if the listeners and the viewers want to, and the YouTube comments, scale of 1 to 10. How does Ray Longo's hair look? It's about a 5 for me, man. But it's all good. Hey, can we get you a little headroom on Ray? I mean, I don't know. The aesthetic isn't ideal. A little headroom. Can we do that? Is that too much to ask? There we go.
Yeah. Now we can see it all.
After all this time, we got to figure it out. I'm gonna get a professional.
We do.
Set.
I actually asked my man to get ahead of it. He said he tried behind the scenes. Enough about that before I upset the entire listenership that loves you so much.
Yeah.
So how was your weekend? How was UFC 285 for you?
Oh, everything was good. First, I had two guys fighting. Shout out to Armando Gaethje, Ring of Combat, 3rd round knockout. Came back from almost being finished in the first round. Just showed heart and determination. Kid I expect to see on the Contender Series. He's got 4 straight knockouts, I think, now in a row. And then we had James Gonzalez in the you saw James, right? You called that fight in Florida?
Yeah, Gonzalez,
there?
yeah.
He had a first round knockout, Gonzalez,
great.
Yeah. So he didn't get the contract, but I hope they do something for him because he's a great kid. His jiu-jitsu, Kenny, you would love. Great MMA jiu-jitsu, even if you get to roll with him or play.
Got a chance
you'd love him.
Got a chance to watch a lot of his past fights and got a chance, of course, to see what he did out there. He is scrappy, man. He goes for it. I love that style, dude. And a really nice kid. Very humble.
Very nice. Yeah. Thank you.
What, Ken-Flo can't get James Gonzalez in the PFL?
I do my best.
I'm telling you.
But
the new kid. Yeah.
285 was great. It was very interesting.
We were just talking about Bo Nickel, and this really was one of the more anticipated UFC debuts that I can remember, certainly in my time with the company. And he made quick work of Jamie Pickett. You know, that was the expectation. He called for a first-round finish. The money kept pouring in on him. DraftKings, I talked to their sportsbook director, Johnny Avello, right? They couldn't even set the price high enough. They're like, minus 1,400. I bet our first bet will come in on Pickett. Fucking nope, right? Everybody banging Nickel despite what the number was, and got it done in a big way, Raymond. Any thoughts on Bo Nickel?
Oh, man, he's going to go right to the top. And, you know, it's crazy because this sport is so different from any other sport that he probably could fight for the championship tomorrow and win based on his wrestling is at such a high level that I don't know if anybody's going to stop it. So all he has to do is avoid getting hit. And it looks like he's throwing too. So it's not, you know, it does remind me of Weidman in a way, but here's the difference. I think Bo Nickel said that he's almost been training for MMA and dreaming about this since day one. When Chris came in 15 years ago, he was wrestling. Then we had to get him with the stand-up, which I thought he picked up really quickly too. But I think these younger kids that have those accolades that he has, plus they're coming in with some stand-up. I think they've been playing around with it. It's a different story now. So I don't know. Good luck with that guy. And you're definitely not going to out-wrestle him. And it looks like his striking looks good. His mindset is awesome. Right now, there's no kinks in the armor. Seems like a great kid. And, I think everybody's going to be pulling for him, too.
Kenny, certainly the fan base is intrigued. I think the UFC is intrigued. I thought it was a nice stroke by them to have him fight a second time on Dana White's Contender Series. But I did fly back to Miami with Mike Brown yesterday. And I think Brownie would like to slow the roll a little bit, maybe see Bo Nickel get punched in the face a couple times before we get him in a title fight. Your thoughts, Flo?
No, and I think that's where, his coaches, his management, need to be on their game as well, giving him the right fights. Don't just go right to the top, even though his skills, like Ray, what I think Ray is saying, and I agree with him, is that his skills right now, where he's at, he could beat maybe a lot of the guys, top 3, top 5 right now. No question about it, but experience does matter. Like I talked about Shavkat, if I have stock in Shavkat, I'd be selling it. With Bo Nickel, give me all the shares. Give me all the stocks. Give me all the shares. This kid's going to the top. So long as they bring him up in the right way. Does he need to improve his striking? Maybe a few things in entries? Yeah, sure. But his grappling advantage, he's going to have that against anybody in that division. Period. He's going to be a champion. I really believe that. If not, he's going to be a superstar either way. I'm really high on this kid. I've been watching him since he was wrestling at Penn State. He was a hot shot then. He's a hot shot now in mixed martial arts, and watch out for that kid, man.
Yeah, let me just add one thing, and I agree with Mike Brown 100% as a coach. It's very important to me to see. Sometimes I just make the guys box. That's it. You can't take down because you're going to test you're going to test a lot of stuff out. You're really going to know if you want to be there because there's no place to go, and you got to see if you could take those shots, come back, what your demeanor is on everything. So I'm sure you could find out in the training room just with hard sparring. They have an idea on where this guy's ceiling is. I mean, everybody knows where his ceiling is, but they know too. Because when I had Chris in the gym, I brought in pro boxers. One guy was a national champ, undefeated, 200 pounder. I mean, you have to do those things. You have to find out early. And, when Chris was coming up, he passed all those tests. But, there's none of my guys that haven't sparred a professional boxer at this point.
Right.
I just think it's huge, especially for the guys that are wrestling. You have to get them out of their comfort zone where they can't rely on, using the takedown.
Sure.
But, Ken, even in boxing, just getting to the clinch, that's an important aspect. And it's hard not to clinch in boxing.
Yeah.
So there's so many good lessons if you do it the right way. That I think this kid, you can ensure that he's going to get to the top.
And then he'll fall in love with his hands. And then later in his career, he'll go back to the wrestling and win a world title. I do think it's going to be interesting to watch Gilbert Burns from here in terms of how he approaches all of these fights. I think it's going to be jiu-jitsu first in almost all of these fights now going forward for Gilbert Durinho Burns. In terms of the matchmaking, Ken-Flo, I'm not going to ask you for a name, right? I said on the post show, Bo Nickel, maybe you give him like a top 25 guy. There's certainly strategy that goes into the matchmaking, but inevitably his next fight is going to be on a numbered card, probably International Fight Week, right? Is that sort of what your expectation is, that it's going to be like a top 25 guy, or do you think that it's going to be a ranked opponent right now for Bo Nickel? Because once you go ranked opponent, you can't go back.
That's the thing, John. Exactly. I think well said. He doesn't have to be a top 25 guy right now. I would kind of take it slow, have that development, get him the right fights where maybe he can play with his striking a little bit against another grappler, perhaps. You got to go out there, see what works. You got to experiment. Of course, a lot of that should be done in the practice room, but a fight is different than practice. I do think he's a big lights guy, having seen him wrestle and all that stuff and team trials and all that stuff. But MMA is a different beast. When he walked out, and it's a special feeling, man, when you walk out to a big pay-per-view card, you see all those fans just hover over you. He looked a little nervous, right? So getting that feel for what it's like to walk into an octagon under those circumstances, under that kind of environment is huge. And he did that, very early in his career, which is just nuts. So I'm really excited to see that kid's career just flourish. It's gonna be an amazing one for sure.
And again, his attitude, the way he speaks, his humbleness, his humility. Come on, man, no brainer for me. You know what I mean? It really is. I'm pulling for that kid 100%.
Michael Chandler not necessarily feeling that humility from Bo Nickel, saying he's getting too talky. He needs to just put his head down and do the work, not call out Khamzat Chimaev. Largely, I felt like Bo Nickel was super humble and accommodating. I mean, there's no doubt Bo Nickel's a big Bo Nickel guy, as my twin brother likes to say, but I do believe that there's definitely a humility there. So Ray Longo and I are definitely aligned on that. I actually like what our producer, Cody Merrill, suggests here, and this is without the benefit of a long list of middleweights, but, Bo Nickel, Kenny, against someone like Andre Barrio, power bar middleweight, who just won his fight this weekend. Now, Barrio's got a lot of UFC experience. He's got a lot of momentum. He's got a lot of cardio, tough as hell. I don't know where he's ranked in terms of the middleweights, if he's like number 30 or what do you think about something like that, Kenny? Is that around the level of fighter or?
I think that makes sense. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Cody, you make a lot of sense. No, I think that's kind of a perfect fight. Doesn't have to be him specifically, but someone in and around that skill and experience level makes a lot of sense.
All right. So real quick, Ken-Flo is saying in the nicest of ways that he is selling, he's not selling his Bitcoin, he's selling his Shavkat Rakhmanov stock. And Danny Rube is his manager, one of our longtime listeners. So Ken, I'm just
Rube, I love you. I love you, Ruby.
Yeah. So he's going to text. He's a great dude. He's going to text Ken-Flo later. Big weekend for Danny Rube with Petr Yan against Longo's guy, Merab Dvalishvili. We'll get on that in a little bit. But Shavkat Rakhmanov and Ian Garry are teammates. And so if I were to ask you guys, which fighter is more likely to realize a UFC championship, I feel pretty convicted that Ken-Flo might actually go Ian Garry today. And dude, Ian Garry is the real deal. You talk about Bo Nickel being competitive selectively against guys in the top 15. Don't tell me Ian Garry's not ready for top 15 competition right fucking now, because I don't want to hear it. Good. Silence. Ray, what are your thoughts on Ian Garry?
No, good fight.
Oh, wow. You must really not like Song Kanan then, huh? Jeez.
And a really nice kid. But if you're asking me who's going to go, him or Rakhmanov, I'm going with Rakhmanov.
And so is 98% of the fan base. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. I mean, but Ian Garry is a good kid, but he's, I don't know. You put Ian Garry in there with Jeff Neal tomorrow, it's not going to look good for Ian Garry.
I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I would pay to see that fight. Sounds like a UFC Fight Night main event to me. Am I overrating Ian Garry? Kenny, am I overrating Ian Garry?
Listen, I'll say this. I think Ian Garry has a ton of potential, and I think every single time I see him, he's better. I think he's confident. I think he is truly studying the game. I think he's put himself in a good position where he's training with high-level guys now, and he's going to come into his own. I was about to tweet, literally about to tweet, this is a perfect round for Ian Garry. And just as about to send it, he gets rocked with a shot. I'm like, oh no, what are you doing? So listen, there's certain things that I think he needs to get better at. And of course, we are mixed martial arts fighters and we are human and we are going to make mistakes. I made a million of them when I fought. But I do think that he's a talented kid who I think is being underrated. What he has going against him is that you have Conor McGregor, who is, the biggest star on the planet from Ireland. And people are like, I don't believe that there's going to be another dude out of Ireland who's going to do it. Ian Garry might. He just might. I'd love to see more improvements. I'd like to see him test his grappling a little bit more. I just want to see more from him before I make an assessment. But dude, when he was on fire, he was in a rhythm and he was spanking that dude. He was looking so good, so sharp. And he's taking the right fights. Continue to take the right fights.
What dude was that again?
That's fine. Song Kanan. That's fine, right? But I happen to...
I'm just saying, no. I think he's a super talented kid, John, but I think him you have to bring up a little slowly. Like a guy like Bo Nickel, I think you could fast track him if that's what you wanted to do. You'd have a better chance. But I think if with the right matchups for the next 4 or 5 fights, I think you could see huge improvements. Yeah. And he's definitely a talented guy. There's no question about it. But
no, I mean, I can't wait to be misquoted this week, right? As if I'm suggesting that if Ian Garry fought his teammate Shavkat Rakhmanov this weekend, that Ian Garry would win the fight. Now, I might think it would be more competitive than some people out there, but people have no idea the extent to which Ian Garry is a student of the game, the commitment, the technical acumen. Cardio is his greatest asset. And don't think for a second when he gets cracked by Song Kanan by a perfect punch that his recoverability isn't aided by the fact that he is one of the hardest workers in the room. When I hear his coaches and I hear his teammates, high-level coaches and teammates talk about Ian Garry, I'm just saying. And in terms of which is more likely to realize a UFC title fight, well, you have to get to the title fight and fucking win it, So come back to me when Shavkat Rakhmanov wins a title. I think a lot of people think he's the next best thing, and maybe he is, but Ian Garry's only 25 years old. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win a world championship. Ray,
I'll say this, John. I think he made way less mistakes than Shavkat Rakhmanov.
Without a doubt, that's for sure. That's a good point. Yeah. But no, super talented kid in a pretty tough division. So I think they have to be more careful bringing him up. And I think he'll be fine because he's definitely got the talent. There's absolutely no question. And he seemed like he was very coachable in the corner. He was coherent. He was listening. Yeah. They had some good exchanges. I mean, the thing I can't wrap my head around is, and I never want to be in that position like Henry Hoof, having all the guys with the possibility of fighting each other in the gym, like those first 2 guys on the card, you have to get out of the corner. And
brutal.
Brutal. That stuff drives me absolutely crazy, man. And I think that's just a major problem for somebody's going to get butt hurt eventually. And I don't know. I'd have to really talk to Henry about that. I know he's running a business, and
it's hard. You're right. I feel.
I mean, that part drives me nuts, John. I never want to see that, and almost like with Aljo and Merab. Thank God those guys, they hold to their morals and their character, and they'll make sure that they work it out the right way. But I would never, ever want to see that. I wouldn't even just be in the arena, right? I'd turn off the TV, I think. I wouldn't even want to see that.
Well, no, and increasingly this obviously happens, especially when you have a team that has such open arms, and Kill Cliff FC has a huge roster. They get sensitive sometimes. These coaches are more sensitive than the fighters, though. Greg Jones getting a little bit sensitive with us over the weekend, texting me. And, it's like there are 3 coaches times 28 corners, right? Which means that I could probably mention a coach 80 times on the night. We love you, Greg Jones. We love West Virginia wrestling. But yes, I mean, Loic Rajabov and Esteban Ribovics, Kenny, they fight in the first fight of the night. Henry Hoof was supposed to corner Ribovics, pulls himself from the corner because he's fighting a teammate. But these two guys kind of had different takes as to just how much they had trained together. Rajabov didn't seem to really think that there was that type of intimate relationship. You did see them embrace thereafter. But yeah, tough spot for a coach to be in for sure.
Never easy.
And that was a great fight. That was a really good fight.
So Dricus du Plessis over Derek Brunson. Brunson's boxing coach, Dre Hurd, throws in the towel with 1 second to go in that second round. Ray, what'd you think of all of that?
Right decision. I like Derek Brunson, but I think it was the right decision. He was starting to look like he was on ice skates and just didn't look like he had it. So I think a good call. Probably try to see more of that in the future. I mean, that's not easy when you're in the corner and you've been with a guy for a while or you know certain things about him. It's not as black and white as I think it is for the people looking on the outside. But I think that was the right move.
Kenny, Dricus du Plessis said to Joe Rogan maybe backstage on Friday that he needs to have some procedure done on his nose. He's essentially mouth breathing the whole fight. He's been able to get to the top 5 now despite that condition. What were your overall thoughts on the South African, on the corner stoppage and everything else?
Oddly enough, I've never was hitting my nose, not once. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I could breathe for the majority of my career pretty much out of my nose. But I'll say this, man. Listen, toughness was the difference in that one. Both guys were super tough. I thought both guys were taking damage. They both seemed like they were very winded at various parts during that fight. Derek Brunson, to me, his base, like his stance and how he was standing and how he was positioning his chin. I'm just surprised that hasn't been rectified. Like that should have been rectified like 8 fights ago. And he continues to do that over and over again. And what you're doing is you're putting your head on a platter. And Dricus du Plessis was making some mistakes with his stance as well, but not as badly as what Derek Brunson was doing. I'm glad they stopped the fight. It was the right thing to do. He was taking one too many shots. And yeah, I think the other thing for Derek Brunson, I can't get a Derek Brunson fight right. I don't think I've ever picked a Derek Brunson fight correctly. I thought this was a good fight for him because du Plessis.
I agree with you.
It's
Kenny.
so hard. Du Plessis, I thought, he's kind of sloppy. He's tough as nails and he's a grinder, but he makes a ton of mistakes and he tries to wrestle guys. I was like, all right, Derek Brunson is a better wrestler than du Plessis. He's got this. Well, he didn't get this.
And Kenny, I tell you, if Weidman had to make a comeback, when he makes a comeback, which I think he will, I think there's not a better fight than him and du Plessis.
Yes,
I think it's not a better fight.
Yeah,
because he'll definitely strategize his wrestling.
He's on a big win streak right now, du Plessis. So
yeah, I think that's a great fight for Chris. When he's ready to go, that's the fight I would take. If I had anything to say, not that I'm talking to him every day now, but if I had anything to do with it, that's the fight I'm taking.
I agree.
Ray Longo, this is a big week for you. Before we let you go, Merab Dvalishvili at the Virgin there in Las Vegas, not at the UFC Apex, despite public perception. Merab Dvalishvili, Petr Yan under the lights Saturday night. Talk to me, brother. Huge fight. I mean, Merab has won 8 fights in a row following the unluckiest 0-2 start in UFC history. I mean, you can argue this guy has had like a near perfect career. I went through it this morning. I mean, I almost pulled up the Frankie Saenz fight this morning because I was like, but talk to me because it all comes down to this one, Raymond.
Yeah, this is huge fight. Come on, extremely tough fight. I think styles obviously make fights. I think Merab's got to do what Merab always does. He's got to really, his tempo is definitely not normal. And I think he's got to, do what he's just got to grind it out. He's got to He's got the cardio, to do it, to keep trying to put him on his back. It should offset his striking enough. And Merab does hit hard. I mean, he's not the most technical striker, but he's willing to throw. I mean, that's part of the success of his takedowns, Kenny, is that he's not faking a punch and going. He's punching you and taking you down. Like, he's committing like this. It's hard to defend. So, I haven't really been a big part of his camp. I saw him when I was out there, talked to Aljo a little bit. But, Merab's going to do what Merab's going to do at the end of the day. He is the machine for a reason. And I'm excited for the fight.
Well, I wish you all the best. No man nor woman has ever cornered 3 times against Petr Yan. Ray Longo, 2-0, heads up against Petr Yan, trying to make it 3-0 this weekend, brother. Petr Yan also represented by Danny Rube, incidentally. So we'll see how it goes this weekend.
But, Petr Yan has to know we were all out to eat with Danny.
Yeah.
Aljo, Merab.
Wow.
He didn't even want to be in the picture, Ken. He was running. He was running away from the camera.
All right.
So, no, Ruby's a good guy. He's got a lot of our guys. We're not talking about the Jones fight. What are we doing?
Oh, please, by all means, talk to me. I'm trying to be respectful of your time.
I respect my time. It was a huge fight. I mean, I just kind of. Can you ever see? You guys see Stripes? Did you ever see the movie Stripes?
Not for a long time. It's hilarious.
Oh man, yeah. There's that scene where they're behind enemy lines and they're in the back of the truck. They all have their rifles and they open up and the other side is pointing at him and he's just giving the guns. Yeah, it's okay. I get John Candy starts going, okay, let's give him all. That was like World War II all over again. What the hell was I looking at? But hats off to John Jones with all the, it was good. The other guy had great guillotine defense too.
No, please. Whatever. No, I'm going to take 5 minutes more of your time. All right. I'm going to take 5 minutes more of your time to talk about Jon Jones and Alexa Grasso very quickly. I apologize. I realized you joined us during the Bo Nickel conversation, right? But yes, I mean, there are a lot of angles, right, on not just the Jon Jones side, but the Ciryl Gane side as well. Kenny and I were sort of bemoaning the fact that he's had 14, 15 months since the Francis Ngannou fight, that knowing that it was either going to be Stipe or Jon Jones, that if you really are going to have any sort of sustained championship run, you got to take advantage of that time. And seemingly he has not been doing that.
Man, I tell you what, I wouldn't even have let that guy have any striking, no pad work. All you're going to do is wrestle. That's it. You're going to wrestle until somebody can't get you down. And then you're going to keep going. Like John, you hit that on the head, man. You hit it on the head with the
appetite for it.
No, not the apathetic, is it? Is that the
word?
Yeah. Apathetic. Yeah. Like his just carefree attitude, it's a fight. Dude, no. It's the heavyweight championship of the world. Like, Jon Jones he was dead on, man. Jon Jones, look, he called it. Got to give it up to him. I'm not the biggest Jon Jones fan. I mean, I always respected his talent, but he called what he was going to do. You got to give it up to him. And he went in and did it. And just the way he was calling it out, like, dude, I'm here focusing on what I have to do. You're playing video games. Like, the guy's dead on. Yeah. I don't know. But, as a coach, there's certain guys you just can't get through to. I mean, it's not really even the coach's problem. It's just the guy's problem. But I don't know. It just didn't look like he gave a shit one way or the other. And I think you had said that, and it kind of played out that way to me. That's the way it looked.
And you know what? I'm really happy for Jon Jones, right? Aside from my personal relationship with him, which is very strong, winning to him is everything, Kenny. And there are a lot of fighters who are able to detach themselves from a singular win or a singular loss. Two guys that come to mind, Sean O'Malley and Israel Adesanya, are very much able to detach themselves from one singular result. Now, O'Malley obviously hasn't won the world title. Adesanya has, right? But to Jon Jones, winning is everything. And I'm not saying that he would, do something drastic to preserve a win, but it matters to him so damn much that I don't know. I know Ciryl Gane's angry, but I don't know that it matters as much to him, and I don't know.
Yeah, what's he angry about?
I don't really know. He didn't expand necessarily upon I think that was one of his emotions after the fact. He angry that he got embarrassed in front of the world.
I'd like to hear the angry because I didn't train the right way. Right. Angry because I didn't diet the right way. Angry because I didn't practice my test. What are you angry about?
No,
I would love to know.
No, you're right. No, right. I mean, I think he's got to have just massive regret. right?
Because he had training partners that were half his size because he didn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know, it's like, yeah, there's.
You know who's more angry than you? The poor fuckers that bet on you. They're angry.
Yeah.
That's who's angry.
Right.
What is he angry
Well,
about?
it was one of those things, Ray, right? It's like you want the fighter who points at himself first and be like, I fucked up. And it's like, yeah, what are you angry about? Are you angry about other things, the way the fight went down, as opposed to going, no, I could have done way better in my training camp to prepare for this fight. Right. So we'll see how he comes back. He's got so much talent. And again, that can be a blessing and a curse. Jon Jones knows all about that.
Right? Oh, without a doubt. Jon Jones, we said in the thing, the one thing he does, he knows how to compete. And, look, I would have loved to, just like with Bo Nickel, I get like with Mike Brown, I would have loved to see Jon Jones tested a little more at heavyweight. Yeah. But we really, didn't get to see anything. He made that look so simple that, God bless him, man. Hats off to him. And the fact that he just predicted it and the way he said it, like, it came to fruition. So, I don't know. All you could do is be happy for the guy, the way he performed. But the other guy, I'd love to know what he was angry about.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's just no substitute for hard work, right? I remember when Jairzinho Rosenstrike signed with the UFC, and I said, "What's the big difference now?" He's like, "Train 3 times a day instead of 2," and it sort of feels like that's got to be the approach, like this whole career, man. So that when you get there, like my 11-year-old daughter, right? Thinks obviously she knows everything, right? But it's like, I said that the worst part about your existence, honey, right now is that you still have no idea what hard work is, right? You think you know, and then all of a sudden in a couple years when middle school gets hard, right, it's going to be like, damn, I wish you could know right now at 11 what hard at work actually is, because you don't know. And I don't know, man, if you're listening out there and you're young, work hard, right? No.
Yeah, really. I mean, but honestly, it's simple advice, but it's the right advice. And unfortunately, with this sport, that's why a guy like Bo Nickel, because of his wrestling experience, you put him up against Derek Bronson or Duplessis. What do you think's going to happen? The guy's got 4 fights. Well, right. Kenny, I'm not. It's not.
It won't even be a fight. He'll smash.
It's a little bit of a problem with this sport. Not a problem, but it's the only sport where you could still get away with something like that. You're not getting away with a guy that was a Hall of Fame baseball player jumping over to football. It's not gonna. It doesn't work like that. But you can be a wrestler, a stud wrestler like Bo Nickel. You're gonna knock out 90% of the people right off the bat. 90%. Now, the way you bring him up, I can't believe we're back to him again, but the way you bring him up is obviously going to be important. But that's the crazy part. You could get that guy into the top 3 tomorrow.
No, right. No, well, hey, look at Alex Pineda and Sean Strickland, right? I mean, if you can find a willing party in that top 5, right? Right. I mean, right. If you were to do a main event, and I know this is a huge stretch, right? Bo Nickel and Dricus Duplessis right now. You know what I mean? Is that not a competitor? You tell me right now, Bo Nickel's not the betting favorite on paper? And that would put him in the top 5. Who's favored, Kenny?
Yeah, without a doubt.
No question
they can do that tomorrow.
Bo Nickel's, massively favored, perhaps.
Very quickly, Ray, in Alexa Grasso's post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, she intimated that they had worked very hard to potentially use some of the spinning attacks against Valentina Shevchenko. Crazy. She just released a post on her social media intimating that back take. They identified maybe that they'd be able to get to it off a spinning kick. They had worked it for months, worked it in the back before the fight on Saturday, and it ultimately produces a world championship.
Hats off to the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Hats off. And I tell you, when she leaped on that neck, man, Kenny, that was a back take from hell. That was crazy.
She looked like a lioness, just like.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
But I think it'll make for a good rematch, but there wasn't a big discrepancy standing up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really intriguing rematch, for sure. But I just think, look, you can only go up for so long. We've been through this with everybody, right? I don't know if this is Valentina's time. She showed a little kink, in the armor with the last fight, maybe, but she's going to have to tune up a couple of things to win that fight. Because I tell you, standing up wise, I think she was getting the worst of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that both realized success, but I think Valentina maybe, if she watches it back, she'll feel like it wasn't even as dominant as maybe she thought it was initially after the fact. I thought it was a close competitive fight really from the outset.
Yeah, 100%. No, that was definitely a close fight. I guess you have to give the rounds to Valentina for the takedowns were beautiful. But man, look, Valentina's got every right to say she did make that one mistake, and that did cost her the fight. But that was a huge mistake.
Yeah. I thought what was interesting, even as she was winning, there was a bit of desperation on Valentina that we haven't seen before. But
all I know is when they stepped in the pocket, that Grasso got the best of those exchanges. The other Valentina, nice jab, but she was too stiff on those. Inside exchanges where the boxing started to look really in Grasso's favor. So, but a good rematch. I think she can make some adjustments and win that fight. That's the good news. But that was a great fight, man. Holy crap. That came out of nowhere.
All right, buddy. Well, safe travels to Vegas. We'll be watching. And I'm not trying to bang on your barber, but I don't know, a little tighter on the sides, maybe get the hair off the ears. You're going to be all over television this weekend, and it looks a little wayward.
I mean, this is actually a wig.
It looks like a fucking wig. It looks like a goddamn hairpiece.
Oh, it is a wig. It's a dyed wig.
It kind of looks like that. Hey,
you're not calling the fight this weekend?
No, I asked to do the pay-per-view in London next weekend instead, with respect.
Oh, man.
No, I got 2 pay-per-views in 3 weeks, so I couldn't make it.
You think they asked? You think they asked John? You think John asked to do the pay-per-view? Come on,
I'm on the fucking A team. I'm on the A team.
He's a big.
I spent my whole life being the bridesmaid on the B team. Now I can say I'm on the A team.
Right.
Wow. Now you're the bride. Very nice. I'll talk to you guys later.
Right. Hey, good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Let's go get that W.
Hey, and Kenny, get Gonzalez in the PFL. Would you please
I'll
get
do
him
my
a contract?
Come on, I have zero power, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, take it easy.
Imagine. No, I mean, I've had UFC fighters after they lose 2 or 3 in a row come up to me at the host hotel to see if I can do anything. And one time I softly tried to go to Sean Shelby with something like, hey, so let me ask you this. If a fighter loses 3 in a row and 2 of 3 are on short notice, he's like, dude, just stop. So
we're getting slapped if we do that. Yeah.
All right, I know Brian Petrie's been a patient man. I quickly want to get to our pronunciation of the week because it features one of the athletes in the co-main event. So let's see what Cody Merrow has for us on this one. This is a fighter who spells his name Alexander with no E. Last name spelled Romanov. He was undefeated prior to his last fight against Marcin Tybura. And this is an interesting audio file. So before we get to that, Cody Merrow, what do you have for us on this budding UFC heavyweight contender?
Well, I'm going to come at it with some confidence, and maybe I shouldn't. But last week, Rakhmanov, but this week we're going Romanov. Alexander.
All right, let's see what he says.
Alexander King Kong Romanov. Alexander King Kong Romanov.
Cody Merrow's on fire. Now, it did sound on the first one that maybe you can argue for that second syllable, but people do screw this up, Kenny, and it is Romanov, as emphasized in that second take. And after a bad 2022, Cody.
Cody's back.
I got a trip to Moscow booked. I'm crushing these Russian names.
It's unbelievable.
Me and Cyril Gahn, we're going to Dagestan. We're not coming back.
Dude, how about John Jones calling him Serial Gain all week, huh?
Gotta love it.
I think he does that shit on purpose, man.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know your name. I'm just fighting you. I don't care.
I'm trying to hold it together when he's calling him fucking Serial. We're doing an interview.
Well, and could you believe, former Patriot Chandler Jones there, him and Art make John look like a child, even at heavyweight. It's crazy.
Beasts, man.
Because John is so big. That's a good point. All right, let us call on the host of the MMA Takes podcast. Hopefully when he goes on Sirius XM, this budding media mogul, they're introducing him from the Anik and Florian podcast, but maybe not. I don't even know.
They didn't. They introduced me for my podcast. I said, hey, I gave you a shot, though, John. I said, I'm using my betting strategy. I was dead wrong about it, but I'm using my betting strategy for you. But they introduced me for MMA Takes. I said, what? Well, hang on a second. All right.
I mean, I promote the MMA Takes podcast every week on this goddamn program, but let's not
100%.
pretend that the MMA Takes podcast is the one that got you on Sirius XM satellite radio.
100%. No.
Being a handicapper for the Anik and Florian podcast, but hey, you know how happy we are for you. I say all of that in jest.
Absolutely.
What kind of t-shirt we got today?
I figured you were, huh?
What kind of t-shirt we got today?
Oh, yeah. So my YouTube channel broke 1,000 subscribers like 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
So I Club 1K, buy the shirts, MMATakesPodcast.com. Little plug there. Right. John, you got one coming. Kenny, I don't have your address, but I'm going to send you some merch here, man.
He's not going to give you his address.
I tell you what, though, you won't. I found this. Do you remember the hat that you railed Kenny on?
Yeah.
I found this hat store. That's incredible. And I'm like, when's Kenny's birthday? Because I'm going to need to send him one of these hats. It's unbelievable.
So
give me a P.O. box, Ken. I don't care.
I'm sending you my address.
No, he does not have a post office box. You probably maybe have you send it to like the PFL HQ.
That works.
Ken-Flo, maybe text him your address after the show if you'd be so kind. All right, we're going to update the standings right now.
Oh, man.
So
let's do it.
I essentially told you guys last week that Bo Nickel should have been a max bet. I mean, I can't get too predictive, but I sort of insinuated that, yes, it would put you in an $8,000 hole. But as someone who's bet on sports almost every day since 1996, Brian Petrie, what are we doing, man? Bo Nickel, Jamie Pickett, man. Sometimes you got to, you got to pull out your testicles and take a point.
100%. My buddies, my sharp buddies texted me and said, what are we doing? Like, you're not max because I'm a Bo Nickel guy. I'm like, I didn't want to seem like a square. Like, he's so high. But rest assured, in real life, I went all in on Bo Nickel, all in Bo Nickel on round 1, submission too. And then I almost hit the under half round, which I had a nice little shekel on as well. He had that arm triangle. I'm like, Jamie's grimacing. It's like 15 seconds. I'm like, Jamie, you toughed it out, bud. Let's give it a quick tap here. Let's cash your boy. Didn't happen. But yeah, I'm a happy man. Bo Nickel, I mean, he does what he does. You know what I mean?
No, and you also had Shavkat Rakhmanov by submission. You don't get any extra credit here for that. But going to be interesting to see how this goes the rest of the day. Let us update the standings. And I almost didn't make you guys both go minus 610 on Valentina Shevchenko, but that's why they play the games. So Brian Petrie started the week minus $510 on the year. Kenny Florian was minus $195. Petrie had Amanda Hebos minus 130. Ken-Flo had Viviane Araujo plus 110. So Petrie gets the better end of that one. You both had Derek Brunson minus 100. Petrie took a shot on Trevin 5-star Jones. Had to be disappointed in that effort, huh, Cody? Or excuse me, huh, Bri?
Well, that was my Jon Anik bet because I wanted Cody to win, so that's I played against myself.
So what did you guys make of what did you guys make of that fight very quickly?
I thought Cody, he came out and said he was injured. I thought he fought smart, right? Trevin Jones, though, throw a punch. This guy's chinny and you're staring at him. I don't know what he was doing. I thought Cody mixed it in well. He was showboating a little bit in that first round. His takedowns look explosive. But yeah, I think this is just, you're going to look on John likes to say this, the Wikipedia page. It's going to be a green stripe, but you're going to forget about the performance. It's just a win. So he's not coming off 4 or 5 losses, in my opinion.
Absolutely, Brian. I agree. I thought it was a nice fight to build from, right? It was one of those performances where he's trying some new things. He wasn't just being reckless out there. He was moving his feet. He was juking and jiving. And it was good to see that. Was it a perfect performance? No. But I also think it takes 2 to tango. And Trevin Jones, like you said, BP, wasn't moving forward, wasn't trying to throw a lot of shots. What was his punch count at the end or strike count at the end of the fight? Probably very, very low. So Cody didn't have a whole lot to work with, I think, as well. Cody was looking to counter, which I think is when Cody is actually at his best. But either way, it was good to see Cody get back on track. That dude has so much potential. Obviously a former champion, and I'd like to see him get back to that championship form. And I think he still can.
Garbrandt was given several possible replacement opponents. He landed on the southpaw Trevin Jones because he was training for a southpaw Julio Arce. By the way, Dean Thomas texted me that Valentina Shevchenko didn't seem ready for some of the southpaw tendencies of Alexa Grasso as well. I just got that message from Dean. All right, so you both hit on Bo Nickel. Ken-Flo gets the better of the disagreement on Mateusz Gamrot and Jalen Turner. It was a split decision. Brian Petrie, objectively, who did you think won that fight? It's okay. It was a close fight. Yeah. No, it's hard when you have a pick, but I thought it was close.
Yeah. I had money on him, and then after the first round, he was plus 190, and I said, I thought he won the first round. Let's go live betting, right? Guys are with me. They thought he won as well. Listen, you never hear me say the word robbery, right? It was just so very close. I just thought Jalen, when he was up, landed more damage. He dropped him a few times. I thought Mateusz, besides the second round where he actually did ground and pound, I thought the takedowns were kind of just null and void. They were just kind of holding there. But again, that's Jalen Turner's a get up, get out. There was a couple moments there where, in the first and third round where Jalen looked pretty good off his back and he's working his way up. But I think what really done it was at the very last 10-second clapper, Gamrot got mount real quick. And I mean, that probably gave him the round. I know the judge 30-27 to me is absurd. Yeah. I'm sorry. I know it's a close fight. That's absurd to me. I don't know what judge had that, but it was close. I did have Turner. We're scoring damage in there, and I thought he did more damage. But fun fight. I liked it. It was a good test for Turner.
They say fighters and coaches, I say, are sensitive. So are commentators. If I go listen to your interview on SiriusXM and there's no mention of the Anik and Florian podcast, I'm not going on SiriusXM until International Fight Week. So. Seriously, I'm not going on that channel until International Fight Week if they didn't mention our podcast. So, all right, you both lost $610 on Valentina Shevchenko, and then you both hit on Johnny Bones Jones. No extra units. Minus 510 for Petrie on the week. Minus 310 for Ken-Flo, who was 5-3. So it's Petrie minus 1020. Ken-Flo is minus 505. As we come up on UFC Fight Night, Jan versus Dvalishvili, and we begin with an outstanding fight at bantamweight. 17-2 Said Nurmagomedov minus 200. Versus Jonathan Martinez plus 170. Nurmagomedov's won 4 in a row, never been finished as a pro. Martinez just the silent killer, right? Keeps getting better with every passing fight. He's also won 4 in a row, finished the hell out of Cub Swanson last October. Said Nurmagomedov, Jonathan Martinez at bantamweight, kid. Which way you going?
Yeah, 4-fight win streak versus 4-fight win streak. This is a juicy fight. I like this fight. And I faded both guys in the past from bad performances. And I've literally paid dearly for it because both these guys, the Barcelos fight with Said and then the Andre Sukumov fight with Jonathan Martinez, I'm like, these guys aren't that good. And they just go and win. Oh man, the last fight with Said though, he looked really good after the Barcelos fight. He's in a 4-fight win streak. He's finished 2 of them. Like he's going out there and he's looking for next. His guillotine is nasty. And his last fight was a high paced fight where the guy was in his face. He was getting kicked to the body. He had to use all his skills and he pulled it out. And that looked really good. Martinez does look good on the feet. His kicks are really heavy. They're good. I mean, he chopped Cub Swanson down. Great knee up the middle as well. But he tends to kind of lose some fights and kind of rally back. That's kind of his calling card. He'll drop some a little bit, then he'll rally back. Chin's been a little bit of an issue, I think. I mean, he's been knocked out before. But I just don't think the pace he's going to be able to keep up with. He hasn't really fought a heavy grappler that. I mean, Frankie Saenz maybe, but Frankie might have been a little past his prime at that point. 70% takedown defense, which is good, but he hasn't fought a dude from the mountains of Dagestan. You know what I mean? And Saeed's very well rounded. So I like Said here. Listen, I didn't lock anybody up last week. I got shit from my boys. Jon Anik, rightfully so, gave me some shit off the top of the show. Yeah, it bothered me, right? I don't bet scared. I'm not going to pick scared. Give me Said here. 3-unit play. Let's trim away. Let's go, man.
This guy, man. All right. Said Nurmagomedov, $600 to pay $300. Ken-Flo, Said Nurmagomedov, Jonathan Martinez. Who do you like?
Real quick, you guys are talking about the Bo Nickel fight. I'm an asshole for not putting it all on Jon Jones. Like, what were we thinking? Not putting it on Jon Jones. I'm saying it's going to be an easy fight on the ground, and Jon Jones was definitely going to try to take it there. Why the hell didn't I just put all the units on Jones? Anyways,
you guys were so convicted, both of you guys, on Jon Jones last week.
That's the one for me that kind of hurts me more. But anyways, all right, let's go to Said. I think this is Nurmagomedov's fight. I think Jonathan Martinez could pose some problems, however. I think he's tough. I think he's scrappy. But like BP said, there's certain times where he tunes out of the fight a little bit and can fade. I don't see that happening with Nurmagomedov. I think he's going to keep the pressure hot and heavy throughout that fight. And I think he's got more ways to win. I don't think Martinez can win this fight on the ground. I do think Nurmagomedov can. Both are good on the feet. But yeah, I like Said here.
All right, next up at featherweight, Ricardo Ramos minus 325, taking on Austin Lingo plus 270. Kind of rare to see a fighter who's 9-1 have plus 270 next to his name. But Lingo hasn't fought since August 2021. Had a couple of tough matchups go away last year, including a fight with Jonathan Pierce. Also had to pull out of a fight against David Onama during fight week last July. On the other side, BP, Ramos lost to the aforementioned Said Nurmagomedov and Fortaleza back in 2019. He has won 3 of 5 with 2 bonuses since returning to 145 pounds. You going Ramos, the big favorite, or Lingo, the dog here, kid?
See, I hate this line, but maybe I love it. It's confusing to me. Like you said, Lingo 9-1. I know he's coming from the LFA. He's good, but is he great? He's got some favorable matchups coming to the UFC. I leaned Ramos initially during my breakdown. I think he's the more talented striker. I think he's the better on the ground. He's better resume, right? But Ramos has been caught a few too many times for me, right? He's been caught out there all in round 1. He gets put out in round 1. So Lingo by KO, who does have some power, round 1 is going to be a glorious number. That is a prop play right there. Gonna sprinkle on that for sure. But official picks can be Ramos. ABT, you always bet talent. I think he's incredibly talented. As long as he doesn't get caught here, I think Lingo is a little more one-dimensional. He's tough. He's durable. Don't see a finish. So give me Ramos by decision. But I'm telling you, sprinkle round 1 Lingo by KO, because listen, Ramos gets caught in that first round.
One of our listeners suggested that not only should you guys have the right to add units to a play, but you also should reserve the right to abstain from one fight every week, right? Because there are certain fights, even if you look at like Valentina Shevchenko against Alexa Grasso, if you don't want to lay minus 600, right, you should reserve the right to at least eliminate one fight, because then he said at year's end, you would have a more realistic number. Right? Because candidly, both of you guys being minus when maybe in your individual accounts you're in the black is a little bit screwed up, right? So just a thought. Again, you can share your thoughts at Anik Florian Pod if you think these guys should be able to abstain from one pick each week. But Ken-Flo, that's not our reality right now. So Ricardo Ramos or Austin Lingo.
I'm a little bit nervous when Ramos fights, just because he gets so aggressive. He starts feeling himself, and then he gets a little bit too reckless. Lingo's a guy that could potentially take advantage of that. Definitely agree, Brian. So I think it's an interesting fight. I think there's some value there with Lingo, who is certainly not going to be afraid to stand up with Ramos. But I do think Ramos, being the more dynamic guy, maybe some more tools, he's going to be more willing to kind of go for certain things. While that can open him up to certain attack vectors, I do think Ramos is the better guy, the better fighter. I don't love the number. Let's go with Ramos, though.
All right, co-main event at heavyweight, Alexander Romanov, minus 150. Alexander Volkov is plus 130. So Romanov was kind of the cat's meow bride before Sergey Pavlovich arrived, but he dropped a majority to Marcin Tybura last August, temporarily halted his rise. As I mentioned, was 16-0 going in. And on the other side, been a while for Volkov. He'd been a real workhorse for a while, but the knockout of Biggie Boy was all the way last June. Volkov has headlined 7 times for the UFC. He's got a 3-rounder this weekend. Brian Petrie, who do you like?
Do you guys hear that? I don't know if... Yeah, that's the hype chain of Romanov flying off the fucking tracks. I mean, this guy did not look good against Tybura. Tybura, a very good fighter. But man, cardio problem, stand-up problem. His only way to win is a donkey punch it. Yeah, he's got a couple submissions against low-level guys who are no longer in the UFC. But that was more strength as opposed to technique. If we're being honest, if you look at his record of who he led up to by Tybura, not very impressive. Okay, coming outside the UFC, had a lot of hype, physically looked good against Tybura, but just fell short. Then you got Volkov, right? This guy he's just fucking fought everybody, right? Thicked up, added some frame, put a couple C's on his name there, thicked up a little bit, thumping now, knocking people out, knocked out Biggie Boy, right? Takedowns are not as easy to come by as they used to be. Him being a plus number here, I think, is just stealing money. I think it's stealing money. I think he'll get taken down maybe in the first round, but he's going to get back up. This guy fought Curtis Blades and got up from Curtis Blades multiple times on short notice. He's going to get up from Romanov. Romanov's going to tire. I like Volkov, but maybe a late TKO, possibly a decision. Romanov does seem to be tough, but plus 130, I mean, give it to me all day long.
Ken-Flo, I just thought of this, and I hope this doesn't sound like we're piling on Seattle Gane. I love his brother David. I really like Seattle himself. But I remember when Alexander Volkov fought Curtis Blades with a COVID-19 backdrop, and he was so upset that he wasn't able to get the requisite wrestling training partners for that training camp. And, that upsetting it, like it felt real, like he just, he was, and he tried like hell, to Brian's point, right? But he knew he didn't have the right training camp for that type of fight. Winnable fight for him this weekend against Alexander Romanov. Safest bet is probably Buffer to say Romanov, but we need to pick on the co-main event, Ken-Flo. Which way are you going?
Gosh, this is a tough one for me, and Brian didn't make it any easier. I'm leaning towards Romanov. I do think that his last performance was, not abysmal, but not fun, not great. I think that I hope that he looks at that as an opportunity to really come with something different. And kind of lights a fire under his ass to get a much better performance. Volkov, I think that there's no question on the feet. He's going to be a problem. He's going to be dangerous, and will certainly have the advantage there. But I think if Romanov is able to time his takedowns properly, have proper control, pace himself well, he can win this fight. I think, again, it takes a long time to get your wrestling and grappling in order. Is Volkov there yet? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm still leaning towards Romanov until further notice. But maybe I change that later in the week as I see weigh-ins and things like that.
All right, and we will lead with Kenny Florian on the main event. And to bide you a little time, I will tell you that Rashad Evans and I were talking on set about the fact that you don't have any white hairs in your beard or your hair and that you don't dye it. So Rashad and I were talking about that on set. I just said that to get a smirk from you. Bide you a little time because you're going to lead the main event. Petr Yan minus 215, Merab Dvalishvili plus 185. So Petr Yan goes 0-2 last year, Kenny. He loses to Aljamain Sterling and Sugar Sean O'Malley, some suggesting it's a real bad time to be fighting Petr Yan. That is Merab Dvalishvili's reality this weekend. We need to pick matchup of bantamweight contenders. Ken-Flo, lead the dance. Who do you got?
Yeah, all the guys give me a hard time. They think I dye my beard and hair. I do have some white hairs in my head every once in a while. Props to my dad for giving me dark hair and not having any white yet. But all right, this is a great fight, man. This is a tough one to pick. I think Petr Yan is a guy who has a ton of experience. I think that he's going to have a big striking advantage in this fight. I also think if someone gets a finish, it's most likely Petr Yan. Very few guys can hit with the kind of power and accuracy that Yan has. There's a couple things that bother me about this, though. First of all, Yan doesn't have the best footwork. And if you're a guy like a Merab Dvalishvili who wants to time your takedowns, those are the kind of strikers that you want to go against. Someone who has big-time power but still is a little flat-footed. I think that will help Merab. I do think Yan, though, will have that speed advantage. So very interesting matchup in that regard. He also has a ton of 5-round experience, big fight experience as well. Merab not there yet, but when I look at that, okay, well, how is Merab going to perform when it comes down to pressure? I think he's going to be just fine. How is he going to deal with 25 minutes in the octagon? I think he's going to be just fine there as well. Everyone talks about his conditioning literally being a weapon, and I believe that to be the case. Can he get a finish over Petr Yan? Perhaps. I think Yan is more likely to get the finish. But I like Merab here. I think he can be consistent at the very least and getting to that clinch, doing something similar that he did to Jose Aldo, hit those takedowns over time and control Petr Yan or slow down Petr Yan. I like Merab here. It's going to be close. It's going to be very interesting. But give me Merab Dvalishvili for the win.
Ken-Flo just sick of fading Longos, guys.
Yeah.
Brian, who do you have?
What a fight. What a main event. Such a tough fight to pick. I cannot sit here and see a fighter as good as Petr Yan losing 3 in a row. I just can't do it. And then I look at Merab, who's an absolute machine going at plus 185. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? His biggest win was Aldo's last time out. He kind of stalled a little bit. Wasn't the greatest Merab performance. That is Aldo, though. Great takedown defense, dangerous on the feet. He did what he had to do to win, which is fine, right? I thought he won. No complaints here. The common factor here is Aldo. Aldo fought Yan twice. He's in Vegas training Merab. And so they both kind of know their game plans, whatever. Ray said he's not been a ton of a part of this camp all that much, which I think is going to hinder Merab a little bit. Ray's a genius mind. And also, he's already prepared for Yan twice, and they got 2 wins. I know the one's a legal knee, whatever, but a solid win the last time out. Merab in Aljo, the differences are not the same fighter. Aljo holds you down. He takes you down. He holds you down. If you try to get back up, I'm going to take your back. Merab will take you down 15 times in one round, not give a shit, right? He's not that dangerous threat to take your back, to submit you. He's got some decent ground and pound, but his cardio is the weapon. But we're dealing with Petr here, who is definitely not a guy who lacks cardio, definitely a guy who doesn't lack motivation, toughness, all those things. And you have an advantage. Merab has the advantage with Aljo, but I also think Jan has the advantage because he's been in there with Aljo. Aljo's probably big brothered Merab multiple times throughout his career. Maybe not now. Aljo's also a very big 135. Merab, I think, is perfect 135, maybe even a little tight on the smaller side. Merab's a good number. If you're rocking Merab, plus 185 is a good number. I'm stalling here because I'm picking Petr Yan, and I don't want that knock at the door from Ray Longo. No one tell Ray Longo this. I just can't see him losing 3 in the row. The number is a little high for me. I wish the number was closer. I think it's going to be a very close fight. But in those clinches, Yan is dangerous, and he's strong, man. He really is. And I can see an elbow coming, a knee up the middle, I'm rooting for Merab. I think he's a great character, and obviously he's Team Longo, who we root for, but yeah, I'm gonna pick Jan. Yeah, I'm gonna pick Jan. Yeah.
And there's all sorts of different ways you can handicap, right? And intangibly, like Brian and I maybe would be more likely to lean into an intangible, like, dude, Petr Yan's not gonna lose 3 fights in a row than maybe Ken-Flo would, but there is something to that when you've been gambling for 25, 30 years. Maybe bet against the streak. All right. If you want more from Brian Petrie, the MMA Takes podcast is all over YouTube and everywhere else. And on social media, it's at Brian Petrie MMA. Buddy, congrats on all your success. We appreciate your weekly contributions. And we'll talk to you obviously next week in advance of UFC 286, brother.
Absolutely. Last question here, John. I saw you're a movie star over the weekend. So we're getting invited to the Oscars, right, my guy? We'll getting the Oscar finals.
Let's go.
Right before I went out there to do the weigh-in, they're saying to me, we'd like you to be theatrical and controversial. And I'm thinking,
what?
Because I had talked to Jake Gyllenhaal, and I just said, I'm just going to say, hey, man, any thoughts on the eve of the biggest fight of your life? And then all of a sudden they wanted me to be theatrical. I did not know that he was going to slap Jay Haran, and I felt like that gave me an opportunity to be a little bit theatrical. So I tried to go into character a little bit.
Hey,
but I
saw the clip.
I'm not meant for Hollywood.
The clip of you, Megan, in DC, like, stop the fight. I saw that clip right before I hopped on here. I'm like, dude's getting a little shiny gold trophy. I love it, man. Good to see Jay Haran, too. Jay Haran.
He's a good dude.
Getting the movie started. Yeah, good dude.
Hey,
all right,
thank
boys.
you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Hey.
All right, AnikFlorianPodcast.com for your merchandise needs. One More Sleep merchandise can be had at millions.co. That includes this GOAT design that you see on DraftKings YouTube channel right now. We also have the best design we've ever created for the UK that will be released later this week. KennyFlorianMartialArts.com is live as well. Also, Michael Bisping was to join us today. He fell ill, so he will either be with us later this week on DraftKings YouTube channel or next Monday, March 13th. And I'll also be joining Teddy Atlas on his podcast on March 13th. So feel free to check that out if you are so inclined. Ken-Flo, any final thoughts? You look like you might have something to say, or can I fucking wrap this bitch up?
You can wrap this bitch up, dude.
All right, thanks to our guests. My man. Yeah, sorry I had a little edge today,
It's good.
Sorry to Greg Jones and everybody else, but it's tough. We're doing the best we can. Thanks to our guests, Ray Longo, Brian Petrie. We are back with you later this week, if not early next. Thanks to our producer, Cody Merrill, putting it all together for Ken-Flo. I'm Jon Anik. Appreciate y'all listening. Subscribe to DraftKings YouTube channel and check out Remember the Show this Thursday live on the AF channel as well. We'll talk to you later in the week, if not sooner. Y'all later.